Lovers and Scientists of the Sea. I'm Mary Alice Cerrito Fettis, Chair of Whalefest Monterey. Thank you, Nicholas, for the Whalefest theme song, Whales, Whales, O Majesty. Thank you to Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching for their excellent and fabulous footage from their whale watching excursions that we will see throughout Whalefest. Whalefest Monterey celebrates the biodiversity of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and the marine nonprofits, institutions, agencies, and businesses that affect it. Whalefest is an educational event dressed up to look like fun. For the past 10 years, we were able to invite you to attend science lectures in an auditorium, visit interactive exhibits around the wharf, participate in arts and crafts projects, and dance to live music. Thanks to everyone's hard work, we were able to bring you 4 nights of 2 hours each of Whalefest to inspire, educate, explore, and especially to empower everyone, including implementing legislation such as the Mount Madonna 4th graders did. The National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, Monterey Bay, awarded Whalefest Monterey and Fishermen's Wharf Association the prestigious Sea Star Award for Education and Outreach for 2020. Tonight, we will introduce you to Walter the Humpback Whale. Learn a sea otter savvy song. We will slip inside Dee, a life-size model of a humpback whale, and learn about the Wahine Project and Science Seafloor ROV. Later on, we'll take you to the Octopus Sea Garden and the feast known as a Whale Fall. We will show you how a sustainable, award-winning wine-growing family affects the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And finally, more about killer whales. You can send your comments or questions to info@whalefest.org or info@montereywharf.com. In addition, you can follow tonight's schedule and tomorrow's schedule at montereywharf.com and whalefest.org. Notice that donate button there? Please remember the science and the education that we bring you at Whalefest. If you could please push on that button, and thank you.
Welcome one and welcome all to the tale of Wally the Whale. Wally is a humpback whale, the firstborn to his mother. So from the very beginning, she took special care of him, teaching him the ways of the whales. She taught him their language, their songs, why they do what they do, eat what they eat, go where they go, and who to befriend and who to avoid. His mother also taught him to care for others and show kindness, not only to his own kind, but many others in the oceans and seas. Wally and his mother were very close. They talked together, they sang together, they dived together, they ate together, they even surfaced and jumped together. One late afternoon, the unexpected happened. Wally and his mother saw and felt the growing turbulence of the sea, the crack of thunder, the fierce and howling winds. They were scared, very scared. They struggled to stay side by side, but the strong currents were too much, and they soon found themselves separated and alone. They called out for each other. As morning came and the sea calmed, Wally surfaced to look for his mother. She was gone. He noticed in the distance tail fins, but they were old and gray looking, with scars and pieces missing. He called out, "Hello, hello," and was answered by an unfamiliar voice. "Who's there?" Yeki, an old, weathered, battered, tired and lonely humpback himself, swam towards Wally, curious but cautious. As if guided by destiny and fate, they both sensed a new and lasting friendship. "Follow me, young humpback, and I will show you a place far away where we both can find food, comfort, and those of our kind." So Yeki and Wally began their journey to Monterey Bay. Soon they came upon a coastline, one Wally had never seen. "What is this?" Wally whispered to Yeki. "This, Wally, is called the coastline. All of the oceans and seas are bordered by them. The land dwellers live there. Sometimes in our travels, we see them." Yeki cautioned Wally to be very wary in his travels, to avoid surface ships, fishing nets and lines, underwater and surface hazards, and especially those called orcas, or killer whales, describing each in depth as they swam along. "Follow those of us who know the safest and most food-filled paths," Yeki said. Swimming along, Wally screamed out, "What is that, Yeki? Should we fear it?" "That, Wally, is the Golden Gate Bridge. The land dwellers cross over it in their travels. Fear it not." They swam past more land sites, to which Wally questioned, and Yeki answered in a calm and reassuring voice. "Wally, our journey is almost over. This is where we turn into Monterey Bay." "Is this where we find comfort, food, and those of our kind?" Wally asked. "Yes, Wally. We humpbacks arrive at a time later in the year than some of our kind, and earlier than others. We may also see others of the seas and oceans who come here as well. There are the sperm whales, the sei whales, the right whales, the gray whales, the fin whales, the blue whales, the orcas, which some call killer whales, and our kind, the humpbacks. When we reach Monterey Bay, some have come and some have gone. others are on their way. It all depends on their food supply, the time of the year, and their migration habits.
Look, Yeki, who are they? And what are they doing?
Wally asked. They are land dwellers. They come here year-round to Monterey Bay to watch different whales, birds, sea otters, seals, and other sea creatures, Yeki replied.
Yeki, Yeki, listen, listen. I hear the song and talk of my mother.
Ah, yes. Go to her, Wally. Go to her and tell her of our journey together, what we saw, what we shared, and what we learned from each other. Tell her, my little friend, that I have always loved her and always will. She will remember me. Of that, I am sure. So, Wally and his mother were once again together, happy, oh so happy.
Yay!
To all of you, thank you from Whalefest Monterey, and we hope you all enjoyed this tale of Wally the Whale.
There were so many of us back in the day, hundreds of thousands, but they took us away. We were hunted for our thick fur, so we found shelter off the coast of Big Sur. We're descendants from these ancestors, living along Central California's shore. Restoring coastlines thrown out of whack. Ocean life is thriving now that we are back. You gotta slow down, you're getting too close. Gotta back up and move your boat. You see me look, that's when you know to give me spaces I float. Spaces I float. I'm an apex predator, living at the top. Gotta work all day, you know I just can't stop. Eating urchins, mussels, clams, crabs, and snails. Gotta keep eating just to get my fill. Now cool grass beds and kelp forests can thrive. They need our help to stay alive, and we need your help. You know it's true. Sing along with us so you know what to do. You gotta slow down, you're getting too close. Gotta back up and move your boat. You see me look, that's when you know to give me spaces I float. Spaces I float. Whoa, please don't point your boat right at us. Pass parallel to the side of us. 5 boat lengths, please, so we can live in peace. Got lots of fur to keep myself warm, but I got no blubber, so my food gets transformed to energy, so I can do what otters do. And I've got no energy to waste on you. If you see my head raised, it means I'm alert. I don't have extra energy to exert, so please don't force me to swim away. It gets so tiresome throughout the day. You gotta slow down, today.
You're such a good girl. You're such a good girl. Yes, you are. Yes, you're a very good girl. You're just so pretty. Shall we go keep walking?
I hope you enjoyed following Ray around the aquarium. Next, we have the unique marine nonprofit, the Wahine Project, founded by Dion Ibarra, who introduced underserved girls to surf, to yoga, to build a relationship with the ocean, and to build self-esteem. This project soon grew to encompass boys and students from all over the area, including high school students. Afterwards, Dive into the world of marine science, technology, and operations with Science Seafloor ROV, which opens the doors for young explorers. Students learn the exciting field of ocean exploration from scientific, technical, and environmental perspectives.
Once we hit the ocean, nothing else matters. It's night and day. In just one decade of how I have watched women and girls move in the world in this relationship with the ocean, their faces are more prevalent in conservation, in sports, and in equity, and creating equity in ocean spaces for women and for more people of color overall. And so starting the Wahine Project and now bringing thousands and thousands, over 10,000, probably up to 15,000 kids into a relationship with the ocean has been so meaningful. It's my way of giving back not only to my community, to now, the Monterey Peninsula, to the state of California, to people all over the world. I see youth having more of an active role in conservation and the environmental movement than I've ever seen before. Our youth are showing the adults, and I love to see that because it's a hopeful end point for my life when I know the youth are going to keep rising up, and I'll be able to take it a little easier. Reminding people how important that relationship and connection is has been awesome. Having an opportunity now with creating a Wahine headquarters and a storefront where we can bring a relationship to the ocean to our greater community is it's amazing. And how we can bring conservation now to the hearts and minds of people who just walk by our store is, I think, foundational in a relationship with the ocean. We don't realize it, but our everyday activities, where we put our dollars, are our vote in how we want to protect the ocean.
I grew up in a family that really cherished the ocean, and it was something we really kept us close, as well as just occupied every weekend and afternoon for us. People that worked really hard to make change in not only their own communities, but reached far beyond their own hometowns to have a dramatic impact on the world that we now live in. Something I've noticed growing up in this generation is that we are a throwaway society whose consumption habits are producing a major problem for our oceans. So I created West End Refill alongside the Wahine headquarters because I saw it as a really great opportunity to give our community a place to refill on home essentials without using single-use plastic. Something I've really enjoyed about working in the Wahine headquarters is building. It's something that I learned from a very young age, watching my father build, and I'm sure he watched his father build. And today I get to share that gift with everyone that comes by our store. We have a lot of fun at Wahine headquarters, building and constructing a lot of what you see around us. I think it's really special and gives us an opportunity to go farther than the soaps to show how things in our homes can be reused and upcycled in a way that benefits not only our family and our community, but gives our items a second life. We're giving a solution for families today so we can recover decades of pollution that have been going on because of these major corporations who are just flooding homes with single-use plastic and containers we'll never be able to use again. And West End Refill is a really great way of bringing together amazing companies up and down California and along the coast that fortunately provide amazing products without costing us the harm of single-use plastic. It's a way of starting the conversation for the Monterey Peninsula community on how we can make changes in our behavior that are going to have a serious impact on what we put in the landfill and what ends up in the ocean. I think the quality of product we offer paired with the zero waste lifestyle that we're delivering is something that is unlike anything we've had on the Monterey Peninsula.
If your middle school child is curious about science, technology, and engineering and enjoys hands-on activities, this one-week-long summer day camp is the right place to start. We are pleased to offer a new camp that builds on technological advances in the field of oceanography.
The kids can get a lot out of this camp. We expose them to a lot of hands-on activities. A lot of them are related to STEM fields, everything from circuits to science, looking at data to creating data, and the whole spectrum from the pieces and parts that are involved in an expedition, and then actually having them plan an expedition at the end of the week, at the end of the camp, utilizing the sensors, the vehicles, the platforms, and the other modes of operation.
I like that we get to program them ourselves and make them do cool things and grab stuff.
So kids are exposed to STEM materials in the classroom, but they may not have real-world experiences to relate it to. Here at SSROV Camp, we bridge that gap by relating it to a marine expedition.
My favorite part about the camp would be when we're working with the ROVs. They're really fun, and I actually learned a lot more about them this weekend.
The kids are challenged every single day with a new piece of technology or a new concept in science. They learn that technology inside and out, and they'll actually learn how to break it down in the summer camp to its basic electronic components. So when that way, if it breaks, they potentially know how to fix it, or they can troubleshoot the problem.
The kids can learn a lot of things about ocean exploration and electronics and robotics and all sorts of things along those lines.
Fun and not long enough.
It's awesome.
Creative, fun, adventurous, and exciting.
Remotely operated vehicles rock.
So a little brief introduction to the camp. The Seafloor Science and ROV Camp is a week-long camp. There's 2 different levels. Level 1 is for kids entering 3rd to 5th grade. Level 2 camp is for kids entering 6th to 9th grade. The camps are hands-on, and the camps are filled with activities. There's typically 4 activities every day. They're all hands-on, and they're technology and science-oriented. So, for example, we focus on science of the seafloor and the technology and operations that make it all possible. So it's quite fun. The younger kids do different things than the older kids, and we hope to have a 3rd camp starting next summer for kids entering 8th to 10th grade, which will be much more an advanced class for the high school students. Anyhow, What we're going to do today is we're going to put an ROV in the water. This is a remotely operated vehicle. ROVs come in many shapes and sizes. This one's obviously quite small. Other ones that we use for science are often the size of a car. All right, see you underwater.
Thank you for joining tonight for Virtual Whalefest Monterey 2021. We're very excited for our 11th annual event that celebrates the gray whale migration along the coast of our Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. My name is Amity Wood, and I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Sanctuary, and I'll be your MC for this virtual symposium. Once again, we have an incredible lineup of presenters to bring you the latest in ocean research and conservation, and we hope you continue to attend each night to hear these captivating talks by our expert speakers that have donated their time to share their stories. I'd like to introduce our first presenter this evening is Chad King, a research specialist with Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Tonight, Chad will recount how during a remotely operated vehicle dive more than 2 miles deep near Davidson Seamount, scientists stumbled upon more than 1,000 female octopuses that were brooding eggs near warm seawater seeping from cracks in the seafloor. After returning to further study the octopus garden, a fresh whale carcass was also discovered, which greatly contributed to the understanding of this unique, never before seen deep sea ecosystem off of our coast. Chad has been a research specialist with the sanctuary since 2002. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology at UC Santa Cruz and a Master's in Marine Science from Moss Landing Marine Laboratories. He is a NOAA dive master and an active participant in subtidal research, including kelp forest and invasive species monitoring and underwater photography and videography. Chad is also responsible for collection, analysis, and dissemination of spatial data for the Sanctuary Integrated Monitoring Network. Today, he leads the offshore deep sea research efforts at Davidson Seamount on behalf of Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Please enjoy Chad's presentation for a review of October 2020 expedition to Davidson Seamount and to the Octopus Garden.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chad King, and I'm a research specialist at Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And for my Whalefest presentation today, I'm going to be talking about our expedition to Davidson Seamount and the Octopus Gardens in October of 2020. I had the privilege of presenting live to an audience in Monterey at Whalefest in January of 2020. And I had a fantastic time and it was received well. So I'm really happy to be back, even if it is virtually today. So just as a review, Davidson Seamount is a part of Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Most of it is outlined in red here. Here's the main portion of Monterey Bay Sanctuary. To the north, we have our sister sanctuaries, the Greater Farallones and Cordell Bank. Davidson Seamount, this lower box here, was added actually in 2008 as a part of the sanctuary, and it's an important part of the research that we conduct today. So Davidson Seamount itself has been a fantastic place for discovery. Back in 2000, with MBARI, Monterey Bay Sanctuary research staff went out there and discovered just a wide assortment of wonderful, long-lived, large corals and sponges, all very deep, most of it approximately 1,200 meters below the surface. Davidson Seamount itself, although one of the best explored and most explored seamounts in the world, it's all relative. So there's still a lot of seamounts that haven't seen the light of an ROV. Davidson's seen quite a bit, but it's 26 miles long by 8 miles wide. So there's still quite a bit of research to be conducted at Davidson. But subsequent trips by MBARI and the sanctuary in 2002, 2006, and a couple other trips solidified this place as an oasis in the deep. I like to think of it as kind of a Dr. Seuss land with all these wonderful, colorful corals and sponges out there. And so this was really the impetus and the genesis for adding Davidson Seamount to Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And the current federal prohibitions are essentially no fishing below 3,000 feet. Now, 3,000 feet is still above the summit of the seamount. So in theory, you can still go out there and fish in the midwater. You just can't fish below 3,000 feet. And primarily that would be dragging with a net. And we don't want those nets to scrape off and damage some of these long-lived corals, some of them that live many, many centuries, in fact. So in October of 2018, Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary had a wonderful opportunity to go out with the exploration vessel Nautilus. Now, this is run by Ocean Exploration Trust, which is headed by Dr. Bob Ballard. Now, Mr. Ballard is famous for discovering the Titanic in the 80s, and he's propelled himself to the lead of really, marine archaeological and maritime research, but also biological research with these wonderful tools that he's been able to put together. Primarily, these tools here in the upper right, you have the ROV, the remotely operated vehicle, Hercules, and its sister called the Argus, and they both work in tandem to explore the seafloor. The Hercules is the main workhorse. The Argus works above it. This is the Nautilus, and in the background here, you see this large domed structure. This is a big satellite array. So we are able to beam everything back, live images and videos from the seafloor to the internet for the public to follow along. And that's what they've been doing for years at nautiluslive.org. So our exploration and discoveries have been shared live with the public, which has been an incredible experience. Now, I was the expedition lead, the chief scientist for our cruises in 2018 and our return in 2019 and our third return this past October of 2020. So I'm going to summarize what we discovered. Typically, this is part of the presentation that goes quite a bit longer, but I want to summarize what we did this past October. And at the end of this long 30-hour dive that we conducted, and by the way, we are going very, very deep. This is not on the seamount itself, but a few miles away from the flanks of the seamount. So think of it kind of like the Sierra Nevada. We're kind of in the Auburn area, in the foothills of Davidson Seamount, a place that had never been explored before. And we wanted to document a bunch of the corals and sponges that we expected to find there. It's part of the charter of our sanctuary. It's part of our management plan. We have to explore and categorize and manage the resources throughout our sanctuary. So what was really interesting is when you go exploring, you really have no idea what you're going to find. You have an idea, but you may not be right. And although most of the dive was fairly expected, shall we say, not the very large corals that we see on the summit. Everything was much, much smaller. We ran into this group of what looked like softballs in the distance. And as we approached, we realized it was a bunch of octopus upside down, kind of showing a very vulnerable posture with their mouths and arms up. And we were really wondering what was going on. When we sat down the ROV to take a closer look and everything stabilized, we could see that the water was shimmering, waving as it came out of the seafloor. And this indicated to us or suggested to us that the water was warm, much like you look on a hot summer day on pavement and you see the air kind of wave. That's the heat causing refraction in the light as it comes into your eyes. So what was really interesting about this is we wondered why these octopus were here. As we took a closer look, we saw eggs underneath each and every one we could see. So these were mother octopus brooding their eggs. And long story short, we discovered this incredible population of octopus, over 1,000 at this one site that we now call the Octopus Garden, kind of an ode to Ringo Starr and the Beatles for their song. And this had never been seen in the world but one place, in Costa Rica. And there it was only 150 or so individuals. Here we found easily over 1,000. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get back there until we went out with the Alvin. I had the opportunity to dive in the submersible Alvin in March of 2019, which was just an incredible experience. And we confirmed that the water coming out of the seafloor was indeed warm. Now, down here, it's as cold as 1.8 degrees Celsius, which is near freezing, around 34 degrees Fahrenheit. And we found that the water coming out of these seeps were up to 10.5 degrees Celsius, which again is only about 50 degrees. It's cold to us, but it's like a spot of these guys down here, or these ladies, I should say. They're all mothers. But as we progressed forward, we found that all of these octopus were in these distinct pools or distinct cracks, fissures, lines, formations. They were clearly aligned with formations on the seafloor. And these were all the cracks and fissures in the seafloor where warm water was escaping. So it was quite obvious that they had a preference to lay their eggs on rocks in warm water. And the question is why? And to be honest, to this day, we still don't know. And that's part of the ongoing research that we are conducting to this day. So here is the some images from that dive with the Alvin. It was an incredible experience, like I said before. So BBC put together this week-long event called Blue Planet Live, in which they broadcast from various places around the world. And one of the places they were interested in was this octopus garden. So Woods Hole contacted me with the BBC and asked if I would be interested in participating. And of course I was. And if I thought that the octopus would still be there. And that was an interesting question because I had no guarantee that the octopus were still going to be there. I had an educated guess that they would be. I didn't think this was a seasonal event. Deep sea octopus take a very long time to brood their eggs. In fact, one species, different than this one, but in a similar environment and in Monterey, actually was tracked by Mbari, and it took her 54 months or 4.5 years until her eggs hatched. Everything in the deep sea happens at a much slower rate because of the cold and the pressure. Everything grows more slowly. Everything doesn't need as much food, and it all has to do with the temperature and how fast things are happening down there. And so I reasonably assumed they would be there, even with the warm water. And so, of course, they were, and it was fantastic. We got it all on camera. It was a wonderful event with BBC. I was able to do 2 dives in the Alvin, and this is deep. We're talking 3,200 meters. That's over 10,000 feet. It was over 2 miles deep. Took an hour and a half just to get to the bottom. But it was something I had never thought I would do in my lifetime. It was a fantastic opportunity and experience. And the Alvin, of course, is one of the most famous subs in the world. It was used to discover the Titanic with Bob Ballard as well. But don't worry, it's been retrofitted many times, so I was safe. So when we confirmed that there was warm water with a thermometer, of course, with the Alvin, there were some experts that chimed in, and they said this is probably a low temperature ridge flank hydrothermal system. Now, I neglected to mention before that Davidson Seamount was a volcano. So we were thinking, is it active again? No. It last erupted more than 9.8 million years ago. This has nothing to do with volcanic activity per se. Rather, deep ocean seawater travels through the seamount, hundreds of meters deep, underneath the sediment cap, through the basalt or the rocky porous rock, and then it comes out through weak points, kind of like in a tube of toothpaste. And during that process, during that travel, the water is warmed because it is closer to the mantle, so it's just naturally warmer. Also with the pressure as well, increases temperature. But also it's slightly chemically altered as well, including a reduction in oxygen, which is why in Costa Rica, they do believe that the temperature was too high and the oxygen was too low for these babies to hatch. Now, it was incredible about our trip to Davidson or the Octopus Garden in the Alvin is this. For the first time, we found and observed and recorded, documented, baby octopus hatching from this site near Davidson. So this was proof that this was a viable nursery. And we still don't know if Costa Rica has ever produced babies. We assume they probably have at some point, but there's been no evidence through various 3 or 4 trips down there. So this was just an incredible moment. These are actually screen grabs I made while I was in the sub when we found several of these babies hatching. We also found development in the eggs, which they did not find in Costa Rica. Here, it might be a little bit hard, but there are black eye spots here. And when you watch the video, and I encourage you to go to nautiluslive.org and look for the Octopus Garden videos, and you'll see a lot of this shimmering water coming out and these wonderful video clips of octopus. So long story short, well, this is a long story, of course. We were able to go back out with the Nautilus in October of 2019. Now, we were able to take temperature measurements here and there, but they're just snapshots in time. They're the temperature right then and there at that moment. We were able to work with a colleague of mine, Jeff Wheat, to lay out long-term temperature and oxygen loggers in these seeps, but also an Osmo sampler, 2 of them, in fact, that are in this orange milk crate. And so this sampled water over a period of 13 months, and the other loggers sampled temperature and oxygen over that same time. So in this way, we'll be able to see the long-term fluctuations of these variables over a year plus period of time, which is going to answer a lot of questions on how stable these systems are. We've also gone out several times with Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, or MBARI, with their ROV, the Doc Ricketts, and they've been a wonderful colleague. And we have some manuscripts in progress right now. But we've been out there several times with them, sampling material, confirming the species of the octopus, which, by the way, is called Musoctopus robustus, collecting a few eggs here and there, and getting other temperature and variable measurements as well. So in 2018, this provided just an incredible buzz in the press, especially with Ocean Exploration Trust's massive PR machine. We had National Geographic coverage. We had Woods Hole, of course, coverage. We put together a wonderful video with the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation called Discover Wonder, the Octopus Garden. So I really encourage you to go look that up on the site at the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. It's about an 8-minute video that kind of puts all of this together in a nice artistic way. So during that 2019 expedition, we also serendipitously came across this. This is a whale fall. Now, this is a whale that had died at the surface and then sank to the seafloor. As you can see here, there is still some flesh on the animal, and it was estimated that perhaps it had been here about 4 months or so. So relatively new. Now, what's rare about this is only about 75 whale falls have ever been documented in the world, but most of them are far past this state, meaning there's just bones that are remaining because they've been down there for many years. This is a rare event in which we came across an animal that was relatively fresh. It still had the baleen, as you can see here, these brush-like teeth. These scavengers, the fishes and octopuses and crustaceans, are all over what was remaining of the heart tissue. There's still some fatty deposits and cartilage and all sorts of stuff. So we were able to get wonderful video of this, sample these fuzzy worms. You can see here some more fish grazing off of the tissue, but also this fuzzy carpet here. This is not hair. These are little tiny tube worms called bone-eating worms. And here's a close-up of them. They're a wonderful creature. They're very intriguing. They actually lack a mouth and a gut, but rather have symbiotic bacteria that live within their tissues. They burrow into the bone, the worm does, and they use an acid essentially to start digesting the fats or lipids in the bones. Now, the bacteria are the ones who take care of digesting the lipids. So the bacteria get a house and some food, and the byproduct of their digestion is carbon, which the worm then absorbs. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's a fantastic one at that. Now, we were able to sample several different types of these tube worms, which, by the way, were only discovered and described back in 2002, so less than 20 years ago. And we did discover a brand new species of tube worm here, of bone-eating worm. And so we'll be naming it at some point and producing a paper for it. I also encourage you to go check out the Sanctuary Headquarters site, Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, Earth is Blue. And they put together this wonderful 2-panel poster series for the whale fall discovery and creatures of a whale fall, all based on this Davidson whale fall. Just beautiful. It's free to download and print as you see fit. Wonderful educational resource. So in 2020, we were able to participate in a third expedition with Ocean Exploration Trust. And if you want to go to nautiluslive.org, again, you can read more specifically about our cruise objectives, not only this year, but in years past. So we were NA 122, that's just the cruise number designation. And this was a joint expedition with Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary, in which we did 2 dives up in Pioneer Canyon to the northern part of Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And then we planned on doing dives down here, and then also diving south of Davidson as well. So here's Davidson Seamount and the sanctuary border in blue. We were planning to go to one place we discovered last year that I had forgotten to mention. We discovered an octopus nursery back in 2018, and in 2019, we discovered a second octopus nursery about 6 miles to the northeast. And so our plan was to go back here because, again, we barely had any time to root around there. And so we wanted to mow the lawn and be able to understand how many octopus were there, and then explore a new area down to the southwest. This is just a map of kind of the ROV snail trail. You can see a little bit more of the octo cone up here. It's a little volcanic cone about 200 meters tall. And it was actually very close to the whale fall, less than a mile. So we were able to dive and travel underwater to get to and from each site. And here it is again, blown up. So what was interesting, of course, this all happened during the pandemic. And so the beginning of the expedition, we actually had to conduct the dives remotely. So this is actually my home office set up. And I know this is a little bit more techie than most people had, but as chief scientist for the first 2 days, I led the dives from home. And I was able to have this wonderful access to live video from the ship and the ROV, as well as variables like depth, temperature, oxygen, all that stuff, current maps, all this stuff. But as chief scientist, I was one of the rare people who was able to physically participate. So after a 14-day quarantine and testing negative for COVID-19, I was allowed to board the vessel in Monterey, and I was on board for 7 days for our sanctuary's expedition to Davidson Seamount. And of course, we took safety precautions, including wearing a mask in the control room, which, by the way, here's a wonderful shot of my seat in the control room showing the live video feeds from the ROV, as well as some of the PCs in front of me. It was kind of like a mini NASA control center. And on this expedition, we went back to the octocone, fully characterized it. We were able to see much more than we did in 2019. And again, we saw these wonderful aggregations of mother octopuses with their eggs laid on the rocks. But every single seep or vent or pool that we came across was slightly different than the other one. Here's one dominated by these tube worms, which is that yellow stringy stuff you see on there, as well as there's some shrimp in here, which we've observed to attack babies or attempt to attack them once they hatch. And they also clean up the spent egg cases afterwards. They do have a pretty good function down there. We see them aligned in other cracks and crevices, sometimes with anemones and crinoids and whelks, sometimes with sea stars, sometimes with tube worms. Here again is more of these linear apparitions or features that these octopus line up with. We had limited time, but we were able to take more oxygen and temperature measurements as well. That was the optode, or the instrument that we measure with. And just some more community shots here, kind of pulling back and showing you what it typically looks like when we come across these massive pools of octopus. Just a wonderful, wonderful place down at the octocone, even caves and ledges and things of that nature. So it was really great is that I have had the opportunity to go back through the video, about 10 hours of it, and actually count all the octopus and then map them to the dive tracks. And all in all, we surveyed an area encompassing about 15 acres or 60,000 square meters. And I counted almost 3,700 octopus, 81% of which were brooding. That means the female mothers in that funny posture upside down. So that's a minimum of 6 octopus per 100 square meters, but it's far more than that because this is not we didn't have 100% coverage of that 15 acres. And with 20 to 40 eggs per clutch, we're talking about a minimum of 1 egg per square meter. We also had the great opportunity of revisiting that whale fall that we discovered in 2019. And almost exactly 12 months to the week, we revisited that whale. And you can see on the left, that is what we saw in comparison to what we saw in 2019. The whale fall had significantly decomposed. There were no scavengers left, but there were still bone-eating worms and different looking ones. So we were able to collect several different morphs of that. And we're hoping that there may be another new species of tube worm that we may have discovered. We also collected some bones, some baleen, some worms that were in the mud, and a few other things. So a lot of this work, of course, these data were just sampled a couple of months ago. They're going to take upwards of a year or two to fully analyze. So we'll have results in the coming years. But like I said, we collected the bone-eating worms, bones, baleen, environmental DNA, and others. And here's some pictures of some of the crew dealing with those samples in the lab and collecting out of the ROV. In 2019, we used a video that we circled around the whale fall to actually collect or to produce a 3D model. And if you go to sketchfab.com and Google Mbari, you'll find this whale fall, which you can interact with. You can spin it around and turn it around. So we're going to use video from 2020, this past expedition, and compare it to the 2019 model. We also wanted to collect the equipment that we set out in 2019. In 2020, we actually found it. Here's an image of the Osmo samplers in a vent that was quite warm with some of the temperature loggers. Unfortunately, we had some equipment issues and we weren't able to collect it at this time, even though it was right there. We had to do an emergency abort. However, our wonderful colleagues at Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, in December, just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to go back out there. We found all the equipment and we retrieved all the equipment. So we will have all of those data, including an extra bonus month to analyze. This is just a picture of the last moments with the Nautilus not being able to get that equipment, even though it was right there, 10,000 feet below the surface. And there we are, moving away. We also did a third dive trying to find another octopus nursery. We did not, but it's okay because we still want to characterize these areas for corals and sponges. And it was just a wonderful variety as well there. So why is all this work important? Well, does the warm water act as a cheat code for reproduction? We think the warm water may accelerate development of the eggs. And so that means more babies for each mother because they're going to reproduce more quickly. So Davidson Seamount itself, now that we've discovered 2 large nurseries 6 miles apart, it may support many more octopus nurseries by acting as a conduit for seawater that is warmed up by the earth. And this, of course, would be a new and important story to tell about the sanctuary, along with white sharks and otters and kelp and urchins. This is another important ecosystem in our sanctuary. But if this is true about Davidson, why not other seamounts? Many other seamounts have been very poorly researched or explored, if any at all, and certainly not around the bases like we have at Davidson. So it's quite possible that seamounts are actually supporting these nurseries and we just don't know about it yet. So we want to be able to go out to other seamounts and try to confirm this theory. So what's next? We did retrieve the loggers and osmo samplers with Dr. Jim Barry, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. Of course, this is in December that I'm recording this, so probably a month ago by the time you're hearing this. We'll be working with Dr. Jeff Weed on all of the logger data. We're going to see if Ossidax and the other worms are going to be new species. I have to finish counts at the octopus garden. We have to do video analysis, writing manuscripts. There's going to be some fine-scale bathymetric mapping with autonomous underwater vehicles, future remotely operated vehicle dives with MBARI, and a lot of outreach products coming in over the years for our exploration center in Santa Cruz, but also a lot of online products, interactive maps, etc. So keep your eyes out for that. So I just wanted to thank Ocean Exploration Trust and the crew, sanctuary staff, of course, our now former superintendent, Paul Michelle Bill Duros, regional West Coast Regional Office lead, my boss, Dr. Andrew DeVogelaar, and many other people, not only from the crew that participated and managed this expedition, because it was a 24/7 operation. It takes many, many people to do this. But I also want to thank the committee of the Whalefest for inviting me back to present to you today. And so if you do have any follow-up questions, I encourage you to contact me at chad.king@noaa.gov, and I would be happy to answer it. So thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Chad. What a great presentation. So many incredible finds in Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, 2 miles deep near Davidson Seamount. If you're curious about deep sea exploration at the Octopus Garden and the discovery of the whale fall, please enjoy these 2 short videos.
We are on the exploration vessel Nautilus, which is run by Ocean Exploration Trust, and the Sanctuary Program is partnering with them to use this vessel and the capable ROVs behind me to explore the Davidson Seamount. So the Davidson Seamount is an extinct volcano. It last erupted 9.8 million years ago. It's about 70 miles southwest of Monterey, about 50 miles off the Big Sur coast. But it's a really big mountain. It's almost 8,000 feet tall. Now it's 26 miles long and 8 miles wide. It's a huge mountain. It's a very significant feature, and we've barely seen anything of it, probably less than a fraction of a percent. And so we're going to be driving up and down this large mountain in this relatively tiny vehicle, this ROV. We're going to be using some really cutting-edge tools. The ROV behind me, a remotely operated vehicle, is named Hercules, and this thing is capable of going extremely deep into the ocean. We're going to be going over 2 miles, in fact. And so we can't visit there ourselves. We can't scuba dive. We're not going to go in a sub. It's a little bit dangerous. So we're going to be able to send this down and see live high-definition video of the seafloor. And with this and the excellent team here on the Nautilus, we're going to be able to characterize all of these corals and sponges that we may encounter. This is not a data-intensive expedition. This really is about exploration and communicating what we find live as we're on the seafloor with the general public, with the capabilities that the ship has. It has a massive bandwidth that can send all this video live over the internet. So this really is like we're kids kind of peeking around the corner and just waiting for that next big discovery.
So is this what we expected to find?
I don't think we expected this.
Zero prediction of this. We made an amazing discovery kind of near the base of Davidson, a little bit away. Just thousands of octopuses brooding their eggs. But the really remarkable thing is that they were all lined up in these cracks and crevices where there was shimmering water coming up. There were these fluid seeps. And so there's definitely something really exciting to discover there. Many other animals just in the seeps and nowhere else. And so it's a real big reason to come back to Davidson.
You know, the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary has a lot to offer. Never expected this. It's going to be a really cool new story to tell. And that's the cool thing about going to Davidson Seamount. It's a big area, it's diverse, and we think we know what we're going to find. But the great thing about exploration is every time we go back there or other places in the ocean, we find something that we never expected to find. And that's what happened on this cruise. As you can see, I'm standing here in front of the exploration vessel Nautilus. We just got back from an amazing research expedition. We have so many more questions after the amazing discoveries we made, so we're certain to be back. You can follow us doing that at Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. You can also find out how you can get involved to help protect the world's oceans.
Super cool. We are in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and we've just come across a whale fall. It's like Christmas for deep sea explorers right now. You are part of exploration in real time right now. You are seeing and observing and making these calls with us just at the same speed as our scientists.
Great shot.
I'm gonna say this looks like
Renaissance
the rostrum
painting.
is slightly arched, not moderately arched.
Yeah, this will be
great shot. Yeah, so the arc of the jawbone there, and then connecting back on the left, you have the ribs. You can see the spinal column, spinal cord, vertebrae starting to go down the middle.
There's still some vascular tubes.
There's so many animals here.
They're all saying, I love whale.
Covered in scavengers. It's a happy day to be an octopus.
I would think of this as 4 to 5 meters long.
You can see that there's sort of a red internal cavity that you see with the white around it, and then it flares at the end, and you can see a couple different
Pods on there.
So those are the bone worms?
Yes.
You know, we put out the alert to a lot of collaborators and other scientists within the sanctuary network and within this area who could, you know, help us pull in some more detail.
What's really neat is the baleen is still there.
Yeah, that may offer us some clues, right? Baleen is the filter feeding structure for whales.
That's right. So this is definitely a baleen whale or a mysticete. So it's not a toothed whale. That narrows it down quite a bit.
You know, listen along with us, watch along with us, send in your questions. We want to know what you want to know about this brand new discovery.
Special thanks to Noah for that great video. Wow, I never knew what a whale fall was till now. So next up, we have two great musicians that Nick and I have had the honor to play with in this room on that piano. First up, I'd like to talk a little bit about Richard Carr. Richard plays from the heart. He has a beautiful spirit, and there's not many musicians like him that could communicate the peacefulness and tranquility of his soul. It flows out from him into the piano, and he will really make you fall in love with the ocean. So this is Richard's song, Whales and Dolphins of Monterey Bay. I hope you enjoy. And after that, Louis Coliana, a great piano player, is going to be serenading us with his original music. A native of Denver, Colorado, Louis has performed at Carnegie Hall, the Grand Ole Opry, and many other amazing locations. So let's listen to Louis pour his expressions out on the piano and give us a great show. So enjoy.
As we complete our speaker symposium for tonight, please stay tuned to hear from Eric Winty of Winty Vineyards. Eric is a fourth generation member of the Winty family and has been involved in the family business his entire life. One of the buzzwords around farming, as it is for most industries, is sustainability. The California wine industry has been very active in developing a sustainable farming and winemaking program called the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance. Winty Family Estates is the first winery to receive a sustainability award from the state of California for integrated pest control management and is one of the first to be certified by the Wine Growing Alliance. Winty Vineyards has been a family business for 137 years through sustainable practices and wants to continue for many generations to come. Please enjoy Eric's presentation entitled Agriculture, the Marine Environment, and Sustainability.
The Livermore Valley has been known as the Livermore Valley since 1835, Robert Livermore. Grapes first started coming here really in any serious amount with the gold rush, and then by the 1880s, people were coming here from San Francisco as weekend locations. The Livermore Valley of the 1950s was a much slower place than it is today. When I was born, there's about 5,000 people in the city of Livermore. Today, there's 80-some thousand. In terms of the wine business, really in the early 1990s, it got down to there were 4 wineries in the valley. And today it's over 50, due in large part to being able to get the South Valley Plan together, which is an agreement amongst all the parties in the area about how to do zoning and how to maintain open space and how to allow agriculture to continue. The Livermore Valley today, I think, is a very vibrant and dynamic area. If you look at the increasing quality of wines coming out of the Livermore Valley, I think the Livermore Valley is really living up to its original impact in the wine business in California. So I think that we're going to continue to see better quality wines. The Livermore Valley is really a pretty magic place for growing grapes.
Hello, my name is Eric Winty, and I am honored to be one of the panelists for Whalefest 2021. I am a fourth-generation member of the Winty family and have been involved in the family business my entire life. My knowledge of the overall impact of California agriculture on the marine environment is somewhat limited, as my experience in farming is almost entirely in growing grapes and making wine. We have been involved in grape growing and winemaking for 137 years, so collectively we do have a point of view on what it takes to farm long-term. Our winery is located in the Livermore Valley, where my great-grandfather started in business with 48 acres of land. Today, we are farming over 2,000 acres of vineyard land, grazing 1,250 acres of cattle land, and running a golf course of about 200 acres. As well, we are farming about 900 acres of vineyard land in the Arroyo Seco appellation in Monterey County, not far from the Monterey Bay. One of the buzzwords around farming, as for many industries, is sustainability. The California wine industry has been very active in developing a sustainable farming and winemaking program called the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance. The internet link is sustainablewinegrowing.org. Winty Family Estates is the first winery to receive a sustainability award from the state of California for integrated pest control and is one of the first to be certified by the Wine Growing Alliance. Currently, we are certified for our vineyards as well as our winery operations. About 4% of California wineries are fully certified. Also, our golf course has been certified by the Audubon Society as a bird sanctuary. When it comes to sustainability, having survived 137 years farming the same ground, you tend to learn what works to keep you going. Thus, much of the current sustainability program is not new to us, but the codification of practice is. Clearly, maintaining your environment is the main goal and objective. The topic of California agriculture and the marine environment is really about the environment overall and not one specific point of intersection. The obvious issues are land, air, water, grape and wine quality, and yield. Taking them in order, I make the following comments. The land. As farmers, we need to maintain soil fertility and not deplete the soil. We allow the native grasses to grow in the vineyard rows and supplement with cover crop overseeding as needed to maintain a combination of plants with deep roots that penetrate the soil as they grow, so we have better water percolation. Plants that produce lots of growth to maintain the organic content of the soil. Plants that attract beneficial insects, the enemies of our enemies are our friends, and plants that attract pests that otherwise might attack our vines. Overall, our cover crop system turns plants that we once considered weeds into part of our soil fertility program. Our cover crop system allows us to basically run a no-till program, meaning we do not cultivate our vineyards with tractors to any extent. We compost all the seeds, stems, tannins, skins, and remaining material after processing and put the compost back on the land each year as part of our effort to maintain soil fertility and to take as little as possible away from the land. All prunings are chopped and tilled back into the soil. We now use over-the-row equipment to a much greater degree, so we are reducing the soil compaction near the root zone and improving vine longevity and yield. We are as well using ATVs much more. They have low pressure tires and are less soil compacting. We also need to preserve our soil. We have a program each year of putting out wattle, which are straw rolls, as well as scattering straw in areas that might erode with heavy rainfall. This saves our soil and preventing silt from entering the creeks, streams, and rivers that eventually enter the ocean. For us, the drainage is through the Niles River into the San Francisco Bay and the Salinas River into Monterey Bay. Our cover crop program allows us not to till the land except occasionally, thus less erosion of topsoil and less loss of topsoil. We have placed most of our land in the Livermore Valley under conservation easements. Open space is a very important element of land planning, so the land is preserved for generations to come as prime vineyard land. The easements have taken away development pressure and our neighbors recognize our right to farm. We attempt as much natural pest management as possible. We have owl boxes throughout our vineyards. The owls are predators on pests such as gophers and squirrels. We have fencing completely around our vineyards so that wild boar and deer do not enter, and we encourage coyotes within our vineyard areas as they keep the ground squirrels and wild turkeys in check. Starlings are a non-native species of birds which attack our vineyards. We employ a falconer to keep the starlings away during harvest using red-tailed hawks. There is also a strong population of native red-tailed hawks in and around our vineyards. We have installed a number of raptor perches to encourage these hawks to reside in and control our vineyards. We are also experimenting with solar-powered free-moving laser pointers to encourage the large starling flocks to seek other locations besides our vineyards. We minimize the use of inputs such as herbicides or pesticides. Vertical shoot positioning is the trellis system we use to manage the growth of vines each year. This means we cause the shoots to go upward. Then by removing leaves at the correct time each year, we can open up the leaf canopy, allowing sunlight and airflow on the grape cluster, thus greatly reducing the need for mildew control. The combination of our new trellis systems and drip irrigation allow us to reduce unwanted weed growth and reduce the need for herbicide. In the winery, we recycle all materials possible so that they do not go into landfills. This includes glass, plastic, paper, and cardboard. also e-waste as well as wastewater as noted below. The air. In California, air quality is one of our major environmental issues. The news has been full of reporting about what now seems to be an annual fire season and the enormous amount of smoke, ash, and soot released into the air. Whether acid rain or global warming, issues with air quality are clear. Wherever possible, we are using newer, lower emissions vehicles and equipment. This includes replacing pickup trucks with ATVs and an updated fleet of diesel trucks. Soon we will be testing electric tractors. 2 Monarch tractors are to be delivered in March 2021 for field trials.
Well, if you need any more evidence that electric autonomous vehicles are taking over, look no further than the Monarch tractor. It's being billed as the world's smartest tractor. And as KPI X5's Don Ford reports, one Alameda County winery is its first customer.
Self-driving battery-powered vehicles aren't just for Teslas on the highway. Electric muscle now comes to the farmland. This medium-sized tractor is one of only 2 in the world. The developer Monarch Tractor says it has twice the torque of a similar tractor, is quieter, no diesel engine, cheaper to run, no fuel or engine maintenance cost. But the secret sauce is that it's a smart learning tractor.
Works like a tractor, you can use it like a tractor, works with all of your existing implements and your existing drivers. So
if you want to use them.
If you want to use them. And you should use them to train the tractor properly on the way that you want your farm to work.
Monarch says the tractor remembers exactly where you want it to go and exactly what you want it to do. After that, the driver can step down. It maintains situational awareness with an array of sensors so it knows the difference between an object and a person. Stand in front and it reads your hand signals. Turn left, right. It will follow you around like a dog. Stop and shut down. Or use an app on your phone for the same commands from a distance.
We've been looking at different types of machinery like this for a long time.
Winty Vineyards in Livermore is excited about the new technology. Winty is Monarch's first customer.
They can run without you even being there, run remotely. So they're a lot safer, they're a lot more efficient, they're a lot cheaper. So I think it's a no-brainer for any winery operation.
Price tag for a tractor that learns and follows you around, $50,000. In Livermore, Don Ford, KPI X5.
The over-the-row equipment allows us to cover, in many cases, multiple rows per pass of the machine, thereby reducing the number of trips through the vineyard and so reducing emissions. We are using an organic dust control agent on our dirt roads throughout all of our vineyards. This dramatically reduces dust into the air, thus reducing the spread of spider mites, which are transmitted by dust and which can cause serious damage to our vineyards. Our cover crop program and drip irrigation have tremendously reduced the number of passes we make with equipment through the vineyard. We do not chase weeds any longer with tractors. This further reduces our emissions from internal combustion engines. Our trellis system, in reducing the pressure from mildew and other vine diseases, causes fewer passes through the vineyard. For our irrigation systems, we have replaced large single motor pumps with multiple smaller energy efficient pumps. We now also use frequency drives for the pump motors, allowing them to run at different RPMs as water demand requires. Lastly, having multiple pumps means we only run the number of pumps required to deliver the water needed. In the winery, we have replaced as many electric motors as possible with new low energy demand, high efficiency motors. The replacements include wine pump motors, refrigeration unit motors, etc. We have also replaced as much lighting as possible with new high efficiency lighting. We have also sensors so lights are only on when people are working in that space. Lastly, we are insulating buildings and tanks to the extent possible to reduce the loss of cold, if you will. Overall, we have a continuous improvement program to reduce energy use. Grape growing and winemaking are still relatively closed systems. Each year, the vine takes up carbon dioxide as part of the photosynthetic process. The CO2 is then released during processing and when wine is consumed, only to be taken up again by the vines for the next harvest. As we continuously improve our energy consumption, reduction in use of energy, greener sources, etc., the closer we get to being a carbon neutral industry. Water. California is the most agriculturally productive state in the United States. Part of the success of California comes from the extensive water system, which is able to catch melting snow from the Sierras each year and distribute the resulting water to both agriculture and the cities. Growing demand is putting great pressure on the water allowed to pass through the rivers each year and out to the Pacific Ocean. In our case, the drainage systems are the arroyos in the Livermore Valley into the Niles River, then into the San Francisco Bay, and for Monterey, the Release Creek into the Arroyo Seco River, into the Salinas River, into the Monterey Bay. The impacts are generally well known in terms of fish and wildlife population. We have a strong focus on water management and using the least amount of water possible while remaining a commercially viable enterprise. Some of our practices include, we have converted all of our vineyards to drip irrigation from overhead sprinklers. This move alone has reduced our water usage by about half. We are now watering almost exclusively the vines and not the whole vineyard area. We are using tensiometers to measure the water content of the soil. This helps in making irrigation decisions with real data. So we do not need to water once a week, whether it is needed or not. This information is sent to our database for the vineyards. We have weather stations throughout our vineyards that collect data on temperatures, humidity, wind, etc. This information is also fed into our database to help irrigation decisions. We use sap flow monitors on a number of vines throughout our vineyards. This allows us to see how much water is flowing through the vine. Again, the information goes into our database. We overfly our vineyards every 10 days or so by airplane, starting in April through the end of harvest in late October, and take ultraspectra images. Then by looking at different wavelengths, we can make determinations about the condition of the vineyards. For example, are they water stressed? We can also find leaks in our water system when we start irrigation in the spring by looking for cold spots in the correct infrared wavelength. By June each year, our trellis system shades out the weeds under the vines. By using limited amount of herbicide, we stop weed growth until then, reducing water consumption while maintaining healthy vines. As above, this practice also reduces travel through the vineyards by tractors, so less emissions and dust, cleaner air. Our wastewater system in the winery captures all the water used in processing, cleaning, etc. We treat this water and then use again in our irrigation programs. So like the composted pumice, as much as possible, our water goes back to the vineyards. Wine quality and yield. To remain commercially viable and thereby sustain our vineyards and open space, we need to have very high grape and wine quality, and also we need competitive yields. California competes with many different wine producing regions around the world. And so if we do not stay in the forefront in these efforts, we will lose our share of market. The conservation and sustainability practices already noted all come together to allow us to continue to compete on quality and yield. Technology also has helped in other ways. Newer equipment, over-the-road units, ATVs, smaller but more powerful tractors, our vertical chute positioning trellis system, and the drip irrigation systems we now use have allowed us to increase the density of vines per acre from about 450 to over 1,000. The yield per vine has gone down, causing grape quality to rise. At the same time, total yield is up because of more vines per acre. So overall, less inputs, especially water, are being used and more grapes are being produced. The vertical chute positioning trellis system also allows for more uniform ripening of the grapes and so increased quality at the higher yield. The data we collect, including sampling of grapes from various blocks weekly as harvest approaches, allows us to almost know each vine individually through the modeling process we use. This allows for the decision of how much to irrigate and how to reduce water use overall. Again, this leads to increased quality. The same data helps us to be able to make harvesting decisions down to the level of individual vine rows, again boosting grape wine quality. We are working on robotics programs to better determine the annual growth of shoots in each vineyard. This helps in determining how to best manage each vineyard with lowest inputs. We do petiole and leaf analysis on all of our 200 plus blocks of grapes as another determination of the health and productivity of our vineyards. This means we are looking at an average of 11 acres per test. This information is added to our database and helps determine how to focus our soil amendment programs very carefully and use only what is needed by block. Overall, our programs are ones of continuous improvement, trying each year to do a little bit better than last year in terms of reduced total inputs at all levels in the vineyards and winery while raising quality at the same time. We have been a family farming business for 137 years through sustainable practices and want to continue for generations to come. Thank you.
Owning your own vineyards that you use in your own winery is a really great way to approach quality from the ground up. We're able to make multiple passes through the vineyard and really take a small lot approach to how we're growing our grapes in order to make really high quality wine. During harvest, I'll be out with my team sampling the vineyards to get the sugar level and the acid levels in the grapes. Once we see those come to fruition where it's time to pick, the winemaking team and I will go out into the vineyard and start trying berries together so that we're all on the same page and we're handing them exactly what they want from the vineyard. I think that the fifth generation has done a great job of incorporating technology into the vineyards and winemaking process, but there's nothing that can replace actually physically being there in the vineyards, looking at the vines and making sure that the quality is there. We are officially a certified California Sustainable Wine Growing Organization, which means that we're sustainable through and through, and you'll be seeing that on our future labels. We've always practiced sustainability in the vineyards, but some new things that we've been trying out are falconry in the vineyards during harvest season so that we can sustainably scare away some of the birds that are eating our crop. And we're also doing a lot with water management. So we're trying to sustainably manage the amount of water we're putting on in the vineyard to make sure that we're conserving our natural resources. We are really proud of this sustainability certification because less than 2% of wineries in California have achieved that. I've learned that the Wente Heritage Clone has so many unique and diverse flavors. Selecting the ones that really mean something to our family heritage was taught to me by my father himself out there in the vineyard. I basically call him every single day asking a question. It's not just one thing that I've learned from him, it's learning every day.
California Killer Whale Project involves a 30-year study of killer whales in Monterey Bay.
Our study is on the behavior and ecology of killer whales in Monterey Bay. It's over a 30-year study. Our nonprofit group is called CaliforniaKillerWhaleProject.org if you'd like more information. Killer whales are the most widely distributed mammal. They occur in all the oceans. They're long-lived, similar to humans, and they live in matriarchal groups. They're the most intelligent of all the whales. They have a postmenopausal phase, which is very rare besides humans. They exhibit cultural transmission. They teach their young through the generations, and they have very complex communication systems. They're the very top predator of all the marine species. and they are found in different ecotypes. Not all killer whales are the same. They have overlapping ranges, yet they don't intermix. And killer whales exhibit sexual dimorphism. The males can have a 6-foot tall fin. The females have much smaller fins. Killer whales rely on sound to communicate with. And we frequently see killer whales in Monterey Bay due to the submarine canyon. It comes very close to shore, which makes it very accessible to study killer whales in this area. And Monterey Bay is now known for killer whales, especially predation on gray whales. I was involved with the first Blue Planet in 1998, the first time it was professionally filmed, the predation of gray whales by killer whales. Since then, many other film crews have been here and still coming as of recent. Okay, our killer whale project is a very long-term study for all of California. We've been working over 38 years and very high value and long-studied marine mammals. This is an example of CA51 bumper. We follow him from a baby as he grows up over the years until now he's an adult male, and we've done that with many killer whales in our population. Our research involves many topics, including photo identification. We document the different ecotypes, population size, looking at their distribution, movements, and occurrence patterns, their social structure, population parameters, predation and social behavior, humpback whale interactions with killer whales, contaminant levels, and we're using new techniques such as drones and camera tags. Photo ID is the basis of our study for most animal studies. These photos were taken over 30 years apart of the same male. They get lots of their scratches when they're youngsters, but you can match them up by the marks and the nicks in their dorsal fin and saddle pad. And we do have a catalog, a recent catalog coming out that has all the whales identified and which family group they're in. This is our first catalog we published in 1997 of all the whales identified, and since then it's been updated. They do live in matriarchal groups, and that's how it is organized. There are different types of killer whales. They have overlapping ranges in the Pacific Ocean. We have the offshore type, which eat sharks. They're found in very large groups. They range all the way from California to Alaska. The resident types, which are very well known in the Pacific Northwest, they feed primarily on salmon. And the transient types, the marine mammal hunters, those are the ones that we see here most often. And of course, the southern residents, K, J, and L pod, are the most famous killer whales, and they have come to Monterey Bay many times over the last 20 years to look for salmon, which they're having a very difficult time finding. Unfortunately, they are starving because the salmon population everywhere is very low. The rest of the talk focuses on mammal hunting or the transient type of killer whales, Bigg's transient killer whale. They are highly associated with the edge of the canyon. And their social structure is matriarchal. It's the females in charge. One group is composed of an adult female with her recent offspring. When her daughter has her own kids, then they form their own group. So it's usually a female left with her sons who will stay with their mom for life. And the daughters will form their own families, and occasionally they will all join together. This is just a brief summary of all of our 30 years of research. We have over 28 matriarchal groups, over 190 animals identified. Many of our whales have traveled and been seen in British Columbia, and this is how we name them. CA means California, and one, when they have our offspring, it's A, B, and C. When that daughter has her own kids, then it's CA1, A, and 1, and so forth. So males are actually mama boys. As I mentioned, the males will stay with their mothers through their life. If their mother dies, then the male will often travel on his own. And here is an example of one lone male playing in kelp. They do mix with other groups of killer whales occasionally, but once their mother is gone, then they are generally on their own most often. And when I first started back in the late 80s in Monterey Bay, there was 5 main females that did most of the hunting on gray whales. Now they've passed that on to their daughters and to their grandkids, who now are the main hunters. So it's passed on through the generations, and we've kept track of all the individuals and their survival rate. Briefly, this is a family tree, just showing we've kept track of the mother and her offspring and her grandkids and her great-grandkids. We have 4 generations now for many groups of killer whales. And the California coast and Monterey Bay is the center of a major upwelling zone. There's many prey, pinnipeds, many species of baleen whales, toothed whales, whales and dolphins and porpoise are prey for the top predator, the killer whale, which is one of the reasons we see them here so often. And I have sampled many killer whales over the past years and found off California we have the highest levels of PCBs and DDTs almost off the chart, and that's because these are chemicals that never biodegrade. They continue to pass through the marine chain. Killer whales continue to fascinate us. They live as long as humans do and sometimes longer, and we're always learning more about them, and we plan to in the future.
Thank you, California Killer Whale Project. Thank you, scientists and lovers of the sea, once again for viewing with us tonight. Tomorrow, Tim Thomas will inform us about our Native American marine history and the whaling era. We will show you how to create the whaler's art, scrimshaw. Peggy Stapp of Marine Life Studies will report on the whale entanglement team, and from NOAA we will learn about ocean guardians, elephant seals, and harbor seals. You will be delighted by creative and unique melodies from our two-time Grammy Award winner, Mads Tolling. Afterwards, Dr. John Ryan from MABARI, that's Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, will take you for a deep dive into the musical world of whales. Thank you to all our sponsors, especially Fishermen's Wharf Association and the Arts Council of Monterey County. Thank you to all our volunteers and our committee, especially Wendy Brookman, Antoinette Saylor, Peggy Stapp, Amity Wood, Judy Proud, Craig Johnson, and many others for their many creative hours. Often you can find David Holydeloff playing bluegrass, Celtic, or Balkan ballads on his mandolin. So tonight, we'll close with Dave Holydeloff and Michael Martinez playing Rattlesnake Rumba. See you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. If you have any questions or comments, please go to info@montereywharf.com or info@whalefest.org. And to view our schedule for tomorrow night, please go to montereywharf.com or whalefest.org. And while you're there, please push on that donate button and remember all the science and education that we are bringing you. Thank you.
Hey, Whalefest 2021. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm Dave Holydeloff here, and
I'm Michael
Martinez on the piano. We're honored to be a part of this year's online celebration, and we'd like to present to you one of my originals, the Rattlesnake Rumba. Now here it goes. Hope you enjoy it.